relaxed and groovy programming notes with commentary and context. A meta-interstitial episode of the almost daily ZenCast. Thank you for joining me, friends. The simulcast live on Sprecher.com. Right over here. Take camera 2, please. Live on Sprecher.com. The almost daily ZenCast. 5 years strong and running and listened to in 21 or 22, maybe 23 different countries around this living planet of ours. Also, simulcast over there on video live stream land, vis-a-vis Streamlabs desktop and the multiverse of online platforms associated therein. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your humble host. And on today's programming note, first a few deep, thinky thoughts in reaction to a very weird and curious, borderline egregious event that recently happened on the show. On the live stream show, not the podcast show, which shoulda, coulda, woulda happened on the podcast show. Shoulda, coulda, woulda happened on the real world, regular the envisioned mega media live call-in talk show. I wish I had made the clip, and maybe I'll make the clip live on this stream, because that was my very first impulse, and that which leads me to this. I want to read this thing I started the live stream with that I have not yet read here, or maybe I already did for the podcast. But my very first thought after this interaction happened earlier today on this live stream, which was, by the way, for the record, specifically about, wait for it, Call of Duty Mobile. I mean, not mobile, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Come on, brain, stop being dyslexic about that. Whenever I want to talk about the Xbox game, for which I do have a box cover, it's just way up there. See it? It's tiny and a little fuzzy. And I'm not going to go climbing up all the way up there. That's so far away. This room is so big that if you saw me in real scale up against that bookmark, that bookcase, I'd only be about this big. And I'd have to climb these giant boxes. Because I live in a fictional... No, I'm kidding. There it is. Boop. Anyways, I was live streaming about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Okay? Hadn't said a word about any kind of personal belief system of my own. Had literally, and I wish I had the tape queued up to rewatch, but I don't, because I'm a lazy bastard. No, because I'm under the weather and sick, and this is supposed to be a very short episode, so hang with me here. I literally had just announced live to everyone watching, and I don't know how many people were watching because this widget never updates beyond 1, but I see 11 people that are supposed to have been in chat recognized by the voice chat machine, which is a whole long, complicated thing. I should explain for the audience of the podcast. Say hello, voice to text robot voice. This will take a hot second. Okay. Say hello, voice to text robot voice.
Zeppo is quoted as having written hello, voice to text robot voice.
I don't know how well people in the podcast could hear that, but there is an app over there on the desktop in Streamlabs designed to help keep me as the gamer focused on the game, so that when people drop in and out, people drop into chat, it will announce them. When people make a comment, it will read their comment. So I don't have to monitor the chat. I can just hear it, right? And I wanted to make sure, apparently, I've discovered it doesn't, this is all context, that's besides the point. Cool technology. It is not a smart AI that's reading or saying things in and of itself. I'm typing it just for the record, in case anyone gets any crazy ideas. Now, what is critical to the center nexus of this programming note episode is that this individual, and I'm not trying to be rude, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. In fact, I've anonymized it for the purposes of this discussion. This individual whom I've never interacted with before, whose name I did not recognize in any way, shape, or form, other than a curious coincidence of some letters being similar to another context, but irrelevant. It clearly couldn't have been that person unless they were trying to pull a prank on me. Because they would never have had that opinion and they would never have made that argument. So that's neither here nor there. An individual who I really don't know how they wound up on my stream starts spouting off statements that are nothing to do, categorically, with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Now, shockingly, they were also not comments I'd never seen before. But we'll get to that in a hot second. What happened to did we ever do the intro to the show? Do I have? Yes, it is. Let's play the jingle jangle. And then we'll kick off the show in a slightly more formal way. But this interaction triggered many, many thoughts, not the least of which is this thing that I was about to read. And I quote, "I would never call anyone a coward if I were you." Right? And I was thinking about saying this to them, but I'd already just turned off the stream. So it's the thought's been dangling there since. If I were you, I wanted to say to this person, I would never call anyone a coward just because they have boundaries, confidence, and better things to do with their time other than endure your weird, childish trolling. That sort of tactic will almost always certainly backfire on you. This is the Almost Daily ZenCast. Hello, and namaste. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I am your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Let's get started. And now the show has officially begun. Welcome, and please be advised, listeners of the Almost Daily ZenCast and its various subsegments, including Good Morning Trumptopia, which is something I find hilarious to me. That's a whole nother sidebar. Welcome, and please note, dear audience of this podcast, I've been away and on hiatus from producing the show on the quote-unquote almost daily cycle for multiple different reasons, not the least of which, and the most recent, was that I literally came down with some sort of nasty sore throat sinus infection thing that was not, I don't think was anything worse than a gnarly cold. And like I kept saying before on the live stream, knock on wood, I don't believe, wait, hold on, let me knock on wood over here. Knock on wood, I don't think was COVID, and I've always been saying the Rona. So I don't want to get tagged for even saying that word. I don't want to argue about it. Welcome to the show. Please be advised, I'm still recovering from that weird, gross, whatever it was, that was severely mild or mildly severe, and not so overwhelming that I couldn't do a few things here and there, but also just annoyingly enough impacting my voice that I didn't want to podcast. Of course, I would then do this other thing, this live stream stuff, and let myself, break down into talking. So I'm going to challenge myself to once again, like, resume like a hiatus. And I'm going to not do a podcast again until this upcoming Monday or Tuesday. And then from there on out, maybe a week from today, Wednesday, let's keep it simple. I'm not going to do another podcast until Wednesday, December 14th. Duh. Why couldn't I do that math in my head? Ding dong. It's because today's the 7th and I just wasn't thinking about math. I just was guess the next, look on the calendar. It's right over there. I thought also it was a lot easier to lean over. I didn't realize how far of a lean. And I almost teeter-tottered out of my chair in a deathly sort of whoa kind of way. So friends, at the very center of this show, for anyone who's new, and the reason I'm doing a programming note is because what this individual did on my live stream was bordering on sort of harassment. And if they continue to do it in a really belligerent kind of way, I would consider taking measures beyond just silencing their chat in whatever channel, like reporting them and or blocking them more bigger or whatever. But I'm not into confrontationalism, right? I'm into friendly, open-minded, sincere, honest, genuine, authentic public discourse. Now, that's not about winning or owning or trolling or converting or proving wrong, you will note. So my approach to my content is not about sparring at that heated level. And yet, people come at me like that. Sometimes that expresses itself in really hilarious ways. On social media, people who don't know that I have a podcast will come at me like they just really have no clue that I have a podcast and that my social media is a direct, immediate outlet in association with a podcast entitled Good Morning Trumptopia. But I'm always forced to giggle whenever I am accused of being obsessed with Donald Trump. Where is that? I wrote a thing. I wrote a whole blurb about it. Is it this one? No, but that's totally pertinent to today's thing. But that's a little bit later on. 1 second. Oh, here we go. And you'll see how this is all interrelated, okay? Once we take a step back. But in written social media, I've on multiple occasions been accused by Trump defenders, Trump loyalists, Trump believers, and those are different subcategories of Trump enthusiasts, I would say. Nuanced distinctions. Like, believers associate him with the divine. They think he is Jesus. I've heard so many, he's actually Saint Bernard reincarnated. He's actually so-and-so cardinal something or another. He's actually... Now, the Trump card, Trump ruined the word Trump. And that's really obnoxious. The Trump card being that, like, in true transcendental, transcendent spiritual philosophy...
Welcome to the Zephyrs.
My eyes are going, Dynaterra, hello. Hopefully, I don't know if you're a real person dropping in or a robot or something, but welcome to the Zeppoverse. This is the talk show podcast chat version, simulcast over there with the almost daily ZenCast on Sprecher.com. A podcast, by the way, listened to in 25 plus different countries with an exponentially growing number of audience members in each. It's still not huge or anything. Don't get the wrong image. I'm not rolling in podcast money. I should be. I wish I were. I'm gonna be soon. But wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that's self-deprecating humor. Different people have on multiple occasions rolled up on me and gotten in, virtually speaking, up in my grill, as it were, and accused me of being, quote unquote, suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. Because I'm clearly obsessed, quote unquote, with Trump. That always makes me laugh. Like a dry, satirical, sandpapery, ha! kind of laugh. It also makes, like my Inna Geisha girl giggle. A little bit of like a hee 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 hee. How dumb. And it's a very judgmental laugh. And I try not to be judgmental. Because nope. I'm just consistent. Yo. I'm not obsessed with Trump. No more than I am obsessed with any kind of sports balling activity or promotional blardy blurb. Like the World Football Sports Cup of corruption and dead migrant workers? Nope, not obsessed. Some people are, to the point of turning a complete and total blind eye to the human rights violations implied or implicit is more correct. Implicit in the construction of the infrastructure that has been problematic over the decades. But that's a whole nother. Go watch that FIFA Uncovered documentary. And then we can argue about FIFA. I don't want to argue about FIFA. I also don't want to argue about being obsessed with Trump. It's extra adorable to me. And of course, I'm just like Trump. I'm spiraling out of control from my prepared notes. Someone gave me the note, like, prepare your notes better. Like, write out stronger bits before going live on your podcast. I'm like, okay. This is what happens. Back on track here. I've just been consistent about my opinion about Trump and have to keep asking the same questions because they're valid questions. I've never built... It's hard to read because my screen is cracked because I dropped my phone. Woe is me. So there's that going on in my life. I never built a gold statue worshiping Trump. That sounds deranged to me. I've never blindly blasted out outrageous, swarthy, foaming at the mouth hatred at someone because they disagreed with me about how amazeballs Trump is as a human being. I've never done that about any human being. I've never blasted at someone and called them names and tried to belittle them and tried to smack them down because they didn't like the movie Brazil, right? Like, I love the movie Brazil. Plenty of people are like, I've never heard of it, dude. I'm like, oh, bummer. That's your loss. Go watch it. Is that a sick burn? I think it was like 100,000 years ago. Does it count as a sick burn today? No, it's just a statement of actual wish fulfillment. Like, oh, you poor soul. You've never seen Brazil? Go rent it. You can rent it on the internet, I think. You can also go buy a DVD or a Blu-ray or whatever fancy schmancy. You've never seen Condor Man? But like these guys, a fanatic. What is fanaticism? What is blind fanaticism other than propagandized programming, right? Like how do you get to blind fanatic place? And the irony is like this vitriol came from someone that supposedly doesn't support Donald Trump, and I think any more was left unsaid because I have vague notions of them playing devil's advocate in favor of Trump, and then sort of pretending to. And this is the person who individually triggered this particular note, and this is from like a day or two ago. And my whole thing is supposed to be, I'm about the idea and not about the individual. So let's not get lost on that thing. This person was like, "You're really," and the thing is, I've had multiple people say this to me over the last 6 years, ever since Trump derangement syndrome as a talking point was mint pressed by Trump. He invented it and then said it 4 times, enough for it to just spread like wildfire, because people will regurgitate any talking point Trump says thoughtlessly at whoever they're supposed to say it to. I've been very consistent from day one. Based on what? My previous lifetime worth of going, who is this weird person? Looking him up and going, oh, he's filed for bankruptcy a bunch of times. Why is that? I wonder. And the facts of his public court trial case record, which is longer than most people realize. All right. Now, is it my fault that a lot of Trump supporters base their initial opinion of Trump on the hyper-glamorized, often totally fictional image of him as a really savvy, massive corporate overlord, as displayed on the really, really obviously bogus reality TV show that he was on for however many years? Yeah, and that's not my fault. But reality TV show is garbage TV, and it's all scripted, and it's not real. And that's always been true. Sorry to break it to you, but that's a hard pill to swallow. Okay. I didn't ever build a golden statue to Trump. I don't go around, claiming that he's the reincarnation of Jesus Christ himself. In fact, to me, that sounds pretty deranged. To me, as a person with a lifelong relationship with Christ, that sounds kind of cuckoo crazy. Now, do I say that to people? No, but I do ask them to question it. I don't belittle a Trump supporter. I've never called a Trump supporter cuckoo crazy to their face or written "you're cuckoo crazy" to someone on the internet, in a chat room, on a post. I've always gone, but wait, why do you believe, how can you believe that he is a reincarnation of whatever you think he is? Jesus himself, God. Now, technically, some of that is a little bit Zen Buddhist-y true, but that's a whole different discussion, right? Because it's true about everybody. And it doesn't mitigate their flaws. In fact, it makes their flaws even that much more important. But it's a level of discussion no one wants to have. Not the Buddhists, really. Not the Trumpists, really. Now, I coined the term Trumptopia not out of hate, but out of clear, obvious identifying that Trump was trying to cultivate his own cultural, ideological constructs of think like Trump, behave like Trump, be like Trump, to get his approval. And that's just an observation of his behavior. Does that mean I hate him? No. That just means it seems pretty obvious to me that based on his factual track record and the fact that he was painfully obviously courting the really weirdly toxic mix of fringy, slightly paranoid, slightly willing to believe crazy things out there of the reborn evangelical and fringe denominations of American Christianity and the white nationalists, which is something a lot of people in America are like, I'm going to put blinders on and not think about it. I don't want to. No, that can't be true. So check, anybody who comes at me with, accusations of blah, 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 whoa, slow your roll down. Me, Trump deranged? No, sorry. The guy's always been a little wonky. The guy's always talked like he's a mafia boss and isn't. The guy's always run his organization in a way that seems to indicate he thinks he can pull off fraudulent conspiratorial scam artistry. And what just happened? A legally sanctioned jury of his peers, whatever that means, because I don't know who was on the jury, right? Was it a bunch of other fake billionaires? Because he's not really a billionaire. He's wealthy. The Trump organization is big compared to the Zeppo organization, because the Zeppo organization doesn't even exist. It's just me, right? I am the Zeppo organization. The Trump organization, I think, and I could be wrong in my numbers here, has approximately 20 some odd thousand people that has ever, like, that according to, but evidence has been shown to prove in court that Trump and the organization, or that the organization and Trump, because the two things have been proven independently of each other in two different contexts, will exaggerate the size of the crowd, the size of the building, the size of the value of the thing, the size of who knows what else, the size of his package, the size of his yard, the size of his yacht, the size of his bank account, the size of his tax load, the size of his, tax exemptions. The guy's just played all the levers in a way that clearly has been found to be fraudulent and conspiracy driven by a court ruling. It hasn't happened. It hasn't been brought to Trump to bear just yet, but Trump literally, the Trump organization, which may have 20,000 employees, but is run and managed as a private family company, I believe. I don't think they're public. I don't think there's Trump stock. Can you imagine if we lived in a world where there was a massive Trump stock to roller coaster up and down on the stock market? That's a whole nother thing. But I digress. I have consistently pointed out that this dude's track record is questionable AF. That's not hatred, yo. That's just me going, Barnum and Bailey just rolled into town. You're gonna do what? You're gonna nominate him for the presidency? I want to write a story about that right there, what I just said. Don't steal my idea. Rough draft, chapter 1. Clip this moment. So, note to self. Barnum and Bailey rolls into town in his mechanical horse-pulled chariot of snake oil salesmanship and theatrical chicanery. And for those who don't know, he was potentially a fraud. I mean, he had committed some fraud, but he was also, guess what? An American quote-unquote folk hero that was appreciated by many of the, certain spectrum of American population that appreciated someone who just spoke obtusely and bluntly and said whatever of a sort of projection-friendly canvas of things so that you could just agree with yourself about everything in your conversation with them. And he was definitely a shuckster. I mean, the guy was a literal carny, a convention entertainment. What's the gig? Which doesn't really have as much shame associated with it as some people say it might have. Boom, 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 boom. What was it? The folks that would call, the thing for the show. At any rate, I digress. To respond to this accusation, first of all, it's kind of ridiculous to try and smack down someone for talking a lot about Trump when they host a podcast called Good Morning Trumptopia. It's do your due diligence, friends. I chose to analyze and discuss Trump as a matter of public discourse because it was an epic chapter in history, right? And I had opinions about it. But did I hate the guy? I hate no one. And there are people in my life that, I guess, one could argue with a cynical enough eye, I have every reason to hate. I've just consistently pointed out that he has these tendencies towards fraudulent criminality from before he ran for office, from decades ago, from his business relations startup with his dad, right? And his shady meat company. And how many times has he had to return money? How many times has he been told to pay off the guys who installed the carpets or the curtains? Like, the courtroom, his fact record of history is littered with judgments against the Trump organization saying, sorry, you can't get away with pulling that. You got to pay, you've been a naughty business person. That's not hate. And that's not regurgitating the maniacal, delusional media, echo chamber, because that's a matter of public record. Now, similarly, I have my opinions about organized religion and about theosophies of various flavors and varieties. And everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I'm not here going, my opinion is more valid than anybody else's, because that's absurd. I'm just saying, here's my opinion. You want to discuss it? Let's discuss it. You want to compare and contrast your opinion to my opinion? Let's go. That's cool. Do you want to tell me that my mortal soul is in danger and I'm going to burn in the pit of hell? Let me slow you up, because just like I've been having discussions like, who's deranged, the Trump fan base that has bent over backwards to support someone who's obviously exhibiting, toxic behaviors, problematic behaviors, fraudulently inclined, corrupt leaning type behaviors his entire life. I mean, you want to defend that, double down on that, and then call everybody else deranged whilst ignoring the two-faced hypocrisy, the flip-flopping, the telling you to hate one thing and then hate the opposite. He went from COVID doesn't exist to everyone get your shots, and you still supported him? But I'm the deranged one. Sorry, I've been consistent as fuck. No offense. Pardon the F-bomb. But to wrap this up, from the day he rolled down the escalator, I was like, why are you guys even considering voting for this guy? He has a history of shady dealings going back 3 decades. Don't vote him into office. And, since then I've just been like, wow, people really have attached themselves to him. People have literally built a personal identity bond with this weird, clownish, sad, exaggerating blowhard of a guy that is gonna someday probably get caught up in a scam too big to keep him out of jail. Even if he never ran for president, that was obviously the arc he was on, based on going back to the 80s to 2014. Never mind anything else, right? Like, I never needed anyone telling me to disagree and not vote, and by the way, the most common thing, before we transition to the other discussion topic, and then end with what's going to happen next in programming time. What did I just do? I think I just accidentally deleted something. Somehow. Didn't I? Oh, no, here we go. Boom. I've got the double cam. Yeah, there we go. I thought I had it on the screen and I don't. But now you can for shizzle see, like, oh, look. There's the podcast and the stuff he's reading and the tea. And then here's this thing. This device, by the way, for anyone who cares to know, and this is totally random, this is the device I play all the iPad games on. Oh, was there music? I was talking through that music, and so the live stream people didn't get to hear it. That's fine. Like how? You can't call me deranged for consistently asking, how can anyone support this guy given the 30-year track record? And then every new incident that added to the obviously valid assessment that he was unqualified for the job, not being sincere about the stuff he was saying, basically pretending to not be a politician while two-facedly being exactly like the worst about what being a politician is, taking people's money, making empty promises, casting blame that doesn't, exaggerating crazy accusations, and making everything a four-alarm fire so that everyone's foaming at the mouth. Like, I'm the deranged one for classically, consistently going, that's what he's doing. And then every time he does it, go, why do you keep supporting that? He's clearly doing what I said he was doing when he rolled down the golden escalator after having taken a shit in his golden toilet from day one. And I don't hate him for having a golden toilet. But it's funny how everyone says, oh, you're such a hater. No, you've been programmed to call me a hater. I don't hate. I think it's adorable and weird and hilarious and questionable and very unhealthy that people have blindly wrapped themselves up in what, and I'm not repeating this because the media said this, I said this from the beginning, before the media took up the term. He's going to build a cult of personality. That's all he's going to do. Because whatever he imagines he's capable of, what he actually wants is a wealthy donor class plus rabid strong number of whoever the F else will be his forever base. Because on that, he can siphon and milk and bilk and sell snake oil without ever having to run for office ever again for the rest of his natural life. He imagines, I would think. Now, I don't know that he thinks that, but that's like if someone were to ask me, where do you think, the plot is going? His fact-based, real life, he cheated on every wife he ever had with the woman he married next. Like, a person to do that is going to do what? He's going to cheat on what? Everything. Because he's cheated on the women he's married. Every time. And then married the woman he cheated with. And then immediately cheated on them. And I'm animated and loud because it's mind-boggling to me. It's not hate. It's intellectual, like, really? It's intellectual, what the fuck is, like, how can you support that? That's wild, that's I'm a stand-up comic trapped inside this box. I should do stand-up comedy, except there isn't a stand-up comedy shop right down the hill from my house. I should find one though, and go do this material. The other thing that's not what happened in my live stream. That's something that people have been saying, like accusing me of Trump derangement syndrome since the day one, and I started this podcast. And it's funny, the people who say that to me haven't even listened to my podcast. The other thing is the reason that I get accused of being a Democrat, and I get accused of blindly defending whatever horrible thing the Democrats are doing. And I'm like, show me where in my track record I've done that. But before we dive into that discussion, we're going to play a little bit of this music, and we're going to let both audiences listen to it.
25 minutes. Lol.
Yeah, I just looked at the timer. Man, have I gone on. Let me wrap up this show with another potentially controversial stand-up comedy statement. And for the record, everything I do is sort of anchored in that framework. And I'm not trying to troll anybody, but I am trying to poke fun at the ideas being thrown around out there that are part of the public discourse. Because there's some ideas that are like, wow, why are we even arguing about that? So this is a thing that I've had in my head as a response to something that happened earlier today on a live stream session where I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, like I talked about at the beginning of this whole routine or this whole discussion. But an obvious Bible thumping, quote unquote, oh wait, hold on a second. I totally forgot that I was also doing it live on a video stream. Oh, wrong screen. Because we're not doing, boom! Hello, friends. A self-proclaimed real Christian who never did any due diligence, never asked me my story, didn't want to hear me out on my side of things, just disrupted my Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 stream recently, and I just announced that I was wrapping things up, okay? And they drop in with hellfire and repent, and accusations that don't make sense because I had not been talking about anything other than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And the thought, and have I already done this? Am I repeating myself? But quote, I'd never said this to them, but I've been thinking about it since I disconnected from that stream. Hey, I don't go interrupting your church live stream shows and yelling at them about how Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is the one and only best competitive team squad-based first-person shooter video game ever made, and demanding that they join the gaming club or repent. Do I? No, I don't. So what are you doing barging in on, and I wish I had said all this, what are you doing barging in on my Call of Duty? I did ask them, like, what does that have anything to do? And I pointed up, because over here I had, right over here, I had the title screen for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. That's not the thing I wanted to read now. I did already read that. And I already read that. A different thought that's developed in between then and now, which I wrote down. And it's really fascinating to me. Here in the United States, in particular, the conservative movement is self-proclaimed. I'm not calling them names. This is a label they apply to themselves. That's why I make clear that I'm talking about a self-proclaimed thing. I get accused of calling people names, and I go out of my way to make sure not to call people names. If I say that Trump has a tendency to be scam artisty, it's because look at his court record history. He has a tendency. So self-proclaimed constitutional originalists will also not want to have anything to do with an originalist discussion about the Gospels. I wonder why that is. But this guy who interrupted my show said a lot of things. And if you want to see it, you can see the show. It'll be on my Twitch page and on my YouTube page and on my Facebook page. I think he may have reported me for some violation on Facebook. But I wasn't the one spewing hate speech. Man, I did say the term hate speech a lot. I don't know if that term alone will flag stuff. But I digress. This is my live multi-stream show on multiple platforms. So I think it's only right, just like anybody else would on their own show, I will get the last word. And that's what this is. I wrote this down almost immediately. On any debate that crops up in there, most especially including today's little surprise attack, my final word on that is this. And for those who don't know, this individual showed up saying that I needed to repent or face hellfire for doing things I don't think I had done, and talking about stuff I most certainly, categorically, had never talked about on my gaming live stream show. Did they listen to an episode of my podcast over on Sprecher.com? Maybe. If they did, they didn't have the wherewithal to specifically tell me where in what podcast I said something that triggered them. So I don't really know. But what they were saying was sad, predictable, really, really tired, recycled talking points that have been around and spewed out of the mouths of many argumentative but sort of not really knowing what to say once they run out of talking points kind of people on the biblical Bible thumping right for a really long time. Having said that, they really they reel in lack of comprehension when I say the following to them. And it's this, and I say this to everyone, without anger, without judgment, without hate, and for your honest, genuine, open-minded, intellectual investigation. I don't want you to blindly agree. I want you to think about what I'm about to say. Take a few days to let it percolate, because real thinking is both analytical and Zen-like non-attachment, right? If you build a self-identity to any ideological construct, are you really thinking about that construct? Or are you just identifying with it? That's why various versions of a sort of Buddhist Zen observation are attributed to various thinkers. Sorry, my nose is really itchy. It was just distracting me because I keep seeing myself in the corner of my eye scratching my face, which is gross. And the podcast listeners had no idea, which is why I love podcasts slightly more than video. Now I'm coughing. And I'm out of tea. Here's the wisdom, though, that I was about to drop. It's not my wisdom. I don't pretend to have made this up. One could only accuse me of paraphrasing it here and putting it in my own terms. But the highest form of intellectual understanding is achieved by being able to examine ideas without building a direct personal identity bond attachment to them. Call me crazy, but if your ideology demands that you immediately identity bond with the ideology and then leaves little to no room for you to question the ideology and poke holes through it and ask why, and here's the crutch, the crux. Here's the crutch, the crucible, the crux, C-R-U-X, of my ideological or anti-ideological standpoint. If your religious, political, and or socioeconomic ideology requires your blind faith belief, your immediate mental identity attachment to it, and that you cultivate, harbor, and promote hate and the call to violent action against others, including the hyper-vilification of those identified others, the dehumanizing of those identified others, and the objectifying of those identifying others, by using hate-filled rhetoric and talking points that are prefabricated and obviously neurolinguistically programmative in nature and manipulative in their construction, then you really, 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 in my humble opinion, should really take a moment to question why you have attached yourself to such hate-filled ideology. That's on you. If your religion or your politics or your socioeconomics requires you to spew hate at others and point fingers at others and get worked up in a vengeful rage at others and then reach the quote-unquote logical conclusion that you must bring some sort of call to action against others and rationalize all that with some sort of unquestionable moral high ground because God said it's okay, then there's something wrong with that ideology, friend. There's something really, really toxic and wrong with whoever is spewing that ideology. And you need to take a moment to think about it. Like, why would you sign up for that? Why would you willingly sign up for that? Like, what's the point? Especially if it's calling itself some form of Christianity. Because, and here's like a really important, like facet to it. This is where like that conservative, double standard on originalism. It wants originalism in the Constitution. I wonder why. We could spend hours talking about that, you guys. Why conservative Christian politicians want forms of literal text-based originalism in their Constitution, but not in their religious interpretations of what Christianity is supposed to be. They want a future post-machine industrial revolution, post-contemporary Rambo Jesus strapped to the teeth with guns, ready to shoot first and ask questions later and let God decide kind of interpretation of the Bible. And yet, and here is my final big bum, because this guy came at me with like, oh, you're changing the meaning of what's really in the Bible. I'm like, no, friend, your organized religion did that for centuries. Go read a few fact-based, historically...
Welcome to the Zephyrs.
Hello, whoever that is. Welcome to the show. Thank you, Robot Voice, for reading that out loud. If you take a real hard look at the facts, organized religion has changed and butchered the text of every organized religion. The organized religion itself, some more so than others, and Christianity in America the most. And they're completely radically ignoring the one hot burning question that I asked this guy who interrupted my stream yesterday. And the point of my whole making a big special episode about a programming note is that like, we can't, I am a confident person with boundaries, friends. And my live stream gaming episodes are not where you sneak attack, throw tired 30-year-old hate-filled rhetoric that's like really easy to talk over and debunk using Christ's own words. Okay? That's not the right time and place. Jesus never said, go be a troll and try to own the libtards. By the way, people come at me with like, oh, you're a leftist Democrat blindly defending the criminal blah, 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 blah. I'm like, no, I'm not. I've never voted for a Democrat in my life. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. The big problem is that people get wound up by their ideology and go out into the world and just want to pepper spray or argumentation. And that's pointless. That's functionally useless, in my humble opinion. You want a functioning society? we need civilized public discourse where we can look at an idea, not build an immediate mental, individual, or collective personal identity bond with it, or a cult of personality around them, if they're a person instead of a statement or idea, and be able to discuss it fairly, rationally, and based, like, using the best facts available. And with the acknowledgement that none of us as individuals will have the fullest, most completest set of facts. But I do know I've got one set of facts, hardcore, undeniable facts, that trumps almost every Bible thumpers, boilerplate, prefab talking points that they have thrown at me since 1987. And I've been having public discourse discussions. I've been having conversations like these with people like the people who came at me earlier today, and anybody else who might want to come at me with I'm going to tell you you're wrong because the Bible says, since 1984, quite literally, 1984, because I've been questioning organized religion since as long as I can think, as long as I've been capable of thinking about the world around me and asking questions. Sorry, hate to ruin it for you. And here's my one legit, serious, hardcore set of facts that should be understood is an underpinning, central, important notion for the entire almost daily ZenCast as a 5-year-long podcast. Because it's something I've known and understood since, 1984, 1985, 1986, or 1987. And that's the following simple reality. If you want to have a serious, real, honest, transparent, meaningful, civilized public discourse discussion about the Gospels and about the difference between what the real Bible is and what organized religion feeds people's mind about it supposedly being, then the very first step must be a serious and sincere and unbiased reading of every version of the Gospels in the original Aramaic, including those rejected as supposed, sacrilegious text or heretical text or non-canonical text, okay? You have to go you literally have to reach back beyond the Latinification of the Bible, okay? And then it was only allowed to be in Latin for how long? Never mind every version of the Bible, because it was literally illegal for a Bible to be in any other language in most countries from which people who think they are Christian come from for a very, very, very long time. And that's because they wanted people to forget the original Aramaic language and phrasing, okay? And that's a stone cold fact. You want to debate the Bible with me? Okay. The only way it can be fair, well-informed, fact-based, is if you and I both read either the original Aramaic of all the Gospels or really legit, fair, unmanipulated, unaltered, unfucked with, direct to English, my preferred reading language, or your whatever language is an individual's preferred reading language, from the original Aramaic. If we haven't done that, we cannot have a real discussion because it's been changed that much, and I can prove it. Before anyone goes, oh, you're making things... Nope. Everyone knows the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy will be done, as it is in heaven. Everyone knows the cadence. Everyone knows it. Now, some will pipe in right here and right now and be like, but that's the Catholic prayer, and the Catholics are just a cult. Stop. That's neither here nor there. Whether you, I'm not telling people to believe in the Catholic Church at all, but whether you accept the Catholic Church or not, everything that is Christianity, especially in America, was totally radically influenced by and cannot be considered anything more than a derivative of what the Catholic Church did, because they're the ones who distracted people from the original Aramaic to begin with by the Latinification of the biblical texts, by eliminating the ones they thought, well, we really don't want people reading those, and taking the Gospels down from like 12 to only 4. Facts, undeniable. So all of Christianity is based on everything that came after that. No matter how nuanced, no matter how sophisticated, I've looked my entire adult life for the last 33 years. I have listened open-mindedly to anybody and everybody who wants to tell me that this preacher or that guy or this person knows the Bible for reals. And then my first question is, did they read it in Aramaic? If they say no, then sorry, move along. Did your preacher, your minister, your priest, the person telling, did they read it in Aramaic? Or more importantly, have you? Or acceptable, because I can't claim to have read the whole Bible in Aramaic. No. But for my street creds, I've read a lot of different versions of the Bible. Like King James to the most generic, new, enhanced, updated, natural language, blah, 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 secular, like it's not Christian, like non-denominational versions of the Bible. I've read them. And then I've read a direct to English translated by someone secular that has no religious agenda into English of the Aramaic. And oh my God, what a world of difference. And to prove it, I'm going to read the Lord's Prayer, which most people either know or you can look up. Look up the Lord's Prayer in English. The standard versions will not read like this. And I quote, and this is for anyone who's like, what the fuck book is he flashing around? What the fuck? Lars Mull. And this is a guy who cares about the Bible. This is a guy who believes in having a relationship with Christ. And he's like, my issue is very few people are reading the original Aramaic. And he's got a lot to say about it. Here's the Lord's Prayer, or the Our Father, as some people know it. As translated, he has it in Aramaic. Where's the camera? He has it in Aramaic, and then he has it translated into English, pronounceable Aramaic, and then he has it in actual English. Okay? And if you are religious and spiritual, if you are Christian, and if you are, and I don't care which flavor, even if you're a Trump Christian, please join me in actually thinking about this and actually considering the words of this prayer and thinking about the difference between this version and the version you might have in your head, which is probably wildly different. Like, let's actually spiritually contemplate the significance of that instead of regurgitating platitudes and arguments as programmed into us by preachers and or politicians. And I quote, and if you're secular, please don't be offended by this. I'm not telling people they got to believe in some version of Jesus or whatever. In fact, hot political take, my hottest political take of my lifetime. And I've been saying this for over 30 years. If the actual Jesus that people sort of think they know were to show up today, Christians of every variety would be the first to deny him, the first to spit in his face, the first to yell at him and tell him to get him a job, to get a job for himself, the first to berate him, the first to judge and accuse him, the first to fucking crucify him. And if he showed up today, he would undeniably be first things first, all about the business of debunking and toppling any and all forms of Christianity that are doing it wrong. Christianity. Because once you read what was preserved of the teachings of Christ in the original Aramaic, before it was all selectively curated down into what became the Latin, you realize, oh wow, never mind the differences between American variations of non-denominational Christianity arguing between each other, never mind the rift between the Catholic Church and everybody else, and never mind, self-appointed Christians calling the Catholic Church a cult. They're all cults of manipulation and distraction. From what? The original Aramaic. And I quote, the Lord's Prayer. Heavenly Source, thou who art everywhere, hallowed be thy name. Blessed be your holy vibration. With a reference to a technical term in the ancient language, capital S, capital H, capital M. Put an asterisk on that. I've already done an episode where I talked about it. And I'm sure we'll come back around full circle and talk about it again. And it's critically important. And it trumps, pardon the use of the lowercase t word. I'm sorry that the Trump family ruined that term. But this fact, this reality, trumps everything in all arguments of the average, everyday Joe Schmo Bible thumper just repeating the standard American Christian, you're going to burn in hell because you don't know what it says in the Bible argument. Because those are all based on derivative, bastardized, distractionary changes post-King James. And King James' version of the Bible was arguably edited and or penned by Shakespeare himself or themselves, whether Shakespeare was one person or a collective group writing under a pseudonym. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done. Kindle us in the fire of your love, here and now and forevermore. Open our hearts to the power of compassion. Fill us with the power of thy mercy. Free us from the fetters with which we bind each other. Free us from the fetters with which we bind ourselves. Lead us out of temptation. Free us from ourselves. And give us the strength to be at one with thee. Let us repose in the higher self. Again, referencing the technical term, Hashim, capital H, capital S, capital M. Pin on the corkboard. No, capital S, capital H, capital M. Shim. Give us the strength to be at one with thee. I already read that. Teach us the true power of forgiveness. Forgive us and let us forgive. May this holy moment be the ground from which our future actions grow. Forgive us and let us forgive until our actions are at one with your holy moment. There's two interpretations of the two English translation from Aramaic. Imagine how different all of the Gospels are and have always been from any and all of the post-Latinification derivative works, post-King James. King James was huge because they finally broke down and allowed the Bible to be translated into English for the first time. And King James, very recently, and from what I remember of the history, I could be a little bit off on some of the details, but King James was not happy and wanted the Anglican Church to have the most beautiful English language Bible ever. Because up until very recently, it had been only allowed in Latin for several hundred, if not a couple of thousand years. And before that, it had been in Aramaic. Okay? So everything that Bible thumpers bring to the argument table is based on post-Latin interpretations and argumentations, and it's so reductive, it's so derivative, and it's so far from the point because they're arguing about the distraction pamphlet. They're arguing about the content that was already messed up, and they're trying to use that to argue about stuff that they don't even really understand truly, right? Christ, the individual that's preserved in the Bible, when he talks about I am the light and the way, he's talking about that which calls itself I am. Not necessarily himself, but simultaneously, as all transcendentalists have said, because arguably that Christ was a transcendentalist who understood that which I think of as I am, the center of my consciousness, is the face of God, the ineffable, blinding light of God. And that's everyone's center of their minds, no matter how corrupt and how polluted and how dumbed down and how crazy and how covered over in human flaws any of them might be. As many different anthropological scholars have argued, one of the biggest distractionary misunderstandings of postmodern Christianity is that Jesus was a Jew. No, the Pharisees were the Jews. Jesus was a Nazarene-born, Palestinian-born student of the Essenes and the Therapists, a member of the Hebrew Israelite community, but not Jewish in the way that the Pharisees who were in league with the Roman Empire were Jewish. But anyways, that's all a whole different other discussion. It's neither here nor there. The things that Jesus actually taught, as revealed by the oldest versions, the most original languages, were all transcendental in nature. That's why there are still transcendental gems found in even the most watered-down versions of the Bible, like Matthew 6:25 or 26 or 22. The light of the body is the eyes. If thine eyes be singular, then thine body shall be made up of light. Although they've bastardized that down to, the window to the soul are the eyeballs, and if your soul is shiny, then people can see your soul in your eyes. But I digress. That was me characterizing how watered down postmodern English translations of the post-King James, which is itself a propagandized post-Roman Catholic Latin-only version of the Bible. All the truth and reality is in the Aramaic. All the lost, forgotten wisdom of Mary Magdalene and Christ's teachings of the transcendental nature of reality are in the Aramaic. You want to argue the Bible? Go read the Aramaic. Otherwise, you're just spewing someone else's talking points, and they're watered down and predictable and redundant and, very curiously angered and telling other people to hate people because of something. Hating the LGBTQ community because of Sodom and Gomorrah. Hating insert another group here because of some other conveniently thing pulled out of the postmodern derivative, watered down, corrupt texts of the Bible. Of the post-King James. Anything post-King James, anything post the Latinification is already badly corrupt, propagandized content. And that's not a crazy anti-Christian thing to say. If Jesus showed up right now, and I wish he would, if I could ever be so lucky, if there was one podcast, it would be Magic Amazeballs for Jesus to suddenly be like, whoa, 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 whoa. He teleported in with a full-blown, chakra system fully activated and his Merkaba all shiny and bright, sparkling with divine, fractal, holographic, sparkling, intelligent light. And he showed up and be like, what's up, brother in Christ? I'd be like, what's up, brother in Christ? Because that's what he taught. Everyone that's alive. And call me crazy and forgive me for getting passionate. It hurts my soul knowing how many souls suffer the pain of this indoctrination caused by all the different crazy variations of organized religion. Where the wisdom teachings say we are all brothers in the Christ, and the Christ is the central consciousness being, which is the divine light of all life. So, hating others because you're being told to is not the light and the path and the way. Recognizing that every living thing has the same Shem, capital S, capital H, capital M, which is ancient Aramaic for your higher soul, your inner self, your true I am being, the thing which is preserved in the light that Christ speaks of, that everyone has it. And that you are all brothers and sisters, children of the divine, whatever ineffable thing that powers that light that is the consciousness behind all life form. Even if they're crazy and weird and corrupt and playing the part of the bad guy. That's what the Zenists are all about, realizing that, some people are going to fall down those rabbit holes. And the solution is healing, not hating them, not hyper-vilifying them, not dehumanizing and objectifying others, but healing yourselves and each other. Because Christ was what? A healer. He didn't sit around saying, thou shalt hate insert name of minority groups here. He literally sat around saying, go, walk amongst the poorest of the poor, give the homeless person the shirt off your back, and heal them with your magical divine energy by reminding them they are magically divine. Okay? And that's not a crazy statement. That's what it says in all the Gospels when you read them in the original Aramaic. You want to argue about the Bible? Go do a little bit of research down this path first. Don't just regurgitate the same sad, exhausted, boring, trite, obviously neurolinguistic programming statements about burning in hell and not bending the knee. It's all about kingship and authority and being governed and mind control and sublimating your will to the will of whoever is interpreting the word of Christ. Oh, you want a real mind bender? And I've already done an episode about this, so I won't bore you anymore. Look up the term logos and go read it in its original terminologies as opposed to how it is used post this broad historical window of corruptive action by the various, from the moment the Roman Catholic Church was created by the Roman Empire to co-opt the power of all that people organizing themselves and practicing spiritually healing forgiveness practices that activated the transcendental, systems of the body. All the way to whatever crazy conspiracy theory ramification of Jesus is going on in QAnon now, which that is, people call me deranged for consistently criticizing Donald Trump, but visualizing and fantasizing about Jesus looking like Rambo with a bunch of financially profitable for the war industry systems, machines of mass murder death. That's not deranged and crazy. When literally, and I hate to be redundant, because I've said this before on the show, and I'm sure I'll have to say it again, the person who we call Jesus Christ said, whoa, you guys, please melt your swords to his own army of followers, told them to melt those swords into plowshares, and then to go and he, turned himself in to the Roman army, and he let himself get crucified, and he forgave the world for needing to do that, right? Why? Because he was trying to topple the merging of corrupt organized religion, the Pharisees, and state, the Roman Empire. But if we're going to discuss and debate these ideas, friends, first, understand where I'm actually coming from. Don't accuse me of things I'm not doing. It's really annoying when someone who calls themselves a Christian and someone who calls themselves a conservative accuses me of things I'm not doing. I'm not advocating for, crazy, bizarre stuff. I'm simply pointing out that their logic is flawed. It's flawed so deep they don't even want to talk about the original texts of the thing they are claiming to thump. You're gonna thump the Bible at me, and before you do so, go read it in Aramaic, because you're way off track, bro. So is the people that condition you into speaking that hate speech. And then, as I opened the show with, if your religion demands that you hate people, there's something wrong there, and you should critically analyze that. I'm going to stop repeating myself. So thank you for tuning in and checking out my thinky thoughts on this issue. And by all means, go read the Gospels in Aramaic. It will blow your mind. It's really, really, really not quite what they talk about in most contemporary. Now, is it possible that I'm not accounting for the tiny fraction of pastors or preachers or teachers or American postmodern Christians that are indeed reading from the Aramaic? Forgive me if I'm not acknowledging that. There are people out there. Lars Moll is one of them. The guy from whose book I read. I really do genuinely love this book. And so, no one is paying me to say that. But if you're interested, go read this book. I recommend this book to people all the time. In my real life, no one's paying me to say that. So there you go, friends. Now, programming, the point of the programming note is I have boundaries, right? If the podcast is about economics, don't come telling me to repent in hell or go to hell. Wait your turn. If I'm doing a live stream show about Call of Duty Mobile, don't come yelling at me for not playing some game on PC that I can't even play. Someone did that to me about, what is it called? Not Variant. Avant-Garde. There's Valerian. There's some first-person shooter that's exclusive to PC desktops. I don't have a PC desktop. They barged into my stream show, which is about Call of Duty Mobile, and said, this isn't Call of Duty Mobile. Why aren't you playing Valeriant? I'm like, bro, slow your roll. I don't have a PC. I can't play that game. Don't get mad at me. Help me buy a PC if you want to see it on my show. Otherwise, move along. Don't come into my, I'm not going to jump into your church and yell about Call of Duty Mobile or Call of Duty Vanguard or Call of Duty anything. So don't show up in my Call of Duty live stream, please, and thank you. If you want to discuss this for a podcast episode specifically about the teachings and the meaning of the factual history of the changing of the dogma that represents the teachings of the person we identify with the label Yeshua Christos. It's not a name. That's a technical term. That's a whole nother discussion. Let's do that. But please don't come at me with stuff that I've seen 1,000 times and that's laughable. Come at me with a genuine desire to gain a better understanding of what it means to be a family member, of that which calls itself I am that which I am. That's a different discussion than you're bad, you're going to burn in hell because you support equal rights for the LGBTQ. Where in the teachings of the Christ does it say go make other people's lives a living hell? It does not. Why are you doing it? Also, he literally says don't proselytize. Don't preach. But rather become, if you can't find a nice person, go be a nice person. To borrow a meme. Anyways, I digress. Because one could say that's exactly what I'm doing on my show. I'm because of the turn of events and because I got, challenged to talk about things this way, and I decided to make my very next podcast episode specifically about what that dude's random abrupt challenge. He literally called me a coward for wanting to go eat breakfast. Like I had not eaten all morning. Excuse-moi. I'll end my content when I darn well feel like. You don't run my show. I run my show. Thanks for being here. You're going to irrationally argue stuff I'm not talking about in a content, format that's got nothing to do with it. Okay. But guess what? I might come back with a pretty good response. And I think that I've said what I've got to say, right? Let's have a civilized discussion, friends. And not just spew mindless talking points at each other. Let's explore the original Aramaic language and really call out the reality of why we were discouraged to forget it in the first place. There's something to talk about. If you're going to call yourself a Christian, why don't you understand and speak? And I'm not claiming, I do not call myself a Christian, and I keep being told, which is hilarious to me, by Christians that I'm not a true Christian. I've never claimed that. Like I told this guy earlier, I believe myself to factually have a relationship with the Christ. And I've never claimed to be a true Christian. I think the moment you start going around claiming to be a true Christian, you've missed the point. And I think if the Jesus suddenly showed up on my show, because he could, right? If he ascended into heaven, he could descend, drop of a hat, show up and be like, what's up, Mr. Zeppo? Let's discuss. I think he'd agree with me about the points I've made today. I could be wrong. I'm not going to force anyone to blindly believe in what I just said, but I am going to humbly ask everyone to actually set aside their biases first and think about what I've said before casting aspersions, spewing hate speech, calling me names, and accusing me of things I haven't done. That's fundamental rule number one of not just my content platforms on every version, every channel, but civilized public discourse as it exists out in the wild. If you can't do that, friends, then eventually you're going to get kicked out of every circle of discussion, I think. At least I believe it should be that way. Having said that, I'm going to leave you to the end of the show. I got to take a break and have a meal break. Thanks for being here, both live on the live stream and on Sprecher.com distribution. It's been a pleasure. Here's the outro music. And that is what I've got to say about that. As always, thank you kindly for listening. This has been the Almost Daily ZenCast with your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart. Namaste, mofos. I'm gonna take... I already said that.
Welcome to the Zappaverse.
Well, you're late. This show is over. But stay tuned for more. I am finally really, for reals, going to take a couple of days off. For reals, Ezio.